Adaptations are only half the battle with cinema, and plenty of films that have released over the last year or so have managed to book online narratives and underwhelming marketing to leave us all pleasantly surprised. So, I'm Ewan, you're watching What Culture, and here are 10 recent movies that were way better than expected.
Want to stay safe online and save big? Get up to 76% off a 2-year NordVPN plan, plus 4 months free and up to a $50 Amazon gift card. Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description and it's all yours.
Number 10. Smile 2. For Smile 2 to have worked, it needed to be twice as good and twice as terrifying as its viral and visceral predecessor, and it delivered on both fronts with flying colors, despite all the accompanying anxieties that go with horror movie sequels, because there aren't that many good ones. Except Scream 2, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, and Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream. Okay, there's loads of really good horror movie sequels, but there's also quite a few stinky ones. Either way, the concept of a smile curse following a global yet infamous pop star, Naomi Scott's Sky Riley, is a genius creative ploy from director Parker Finn, as the curse is now naturally and narratively expanded from a minor to a major scale, which, you guessed it, comes with disastrous consequences for both Riley and her devoted fanbase. There is a great cast here too, including the likes of Rosemary DeWitt, Lucas Gage, Ray Nicholson, son of Jack, and a return for Kyle Gallner as Joel. However, and rather fittingly, Scott steals the spotlight in what is a clear career highlight. Not that folks don't know any of this by now, but yeah, Smile 2 is a top-notch horror movie sequel that brings blood, guts, and gore to the table in ways you wouldn't even want to imagine. Bring on the third if, you want more trauma. Number 9. Wicked. To call the big screen adaptation of Wicked belated would be a bit of an understatement, given the book was published in 1995 and the stage musical premiered in 2003. With that kind of gestation comes a heck of a lot of scrutiny, which only gets taken up another notch altogether when you cast one of the biggest pop stars on the planet, Ariana Grande, as one of the leads. Everything about this movie was picked apart before its release, particularly its use of CGI, which feels weird to say now given that John M. Chu's film was received as one of the most visually compelling screen musical adaptations in recent history. Wicked proved a monumental success globally, so much so that it has become the highest grossing Broadway musical adaptation of all time, surpassing fellow fan favorites like Mamma Mia. Wicked went on to receive a whole host of award recognition too, most notably 10 Academy Award noms, including 2 wins, which is kind of even more impressive when you consider how little patience there is for multi-part movie events at this moment in time. Number 8. F1. In a summer expected to be dominated by the likes of Jurassic World Rebirth, Superman, and the Fantastic Four First Steps, Joseph Kosinski's F1 may be the dark horse in this particular race, and may in fact prove to be the best of the bunch. We've been blessed with the occasional good racing film in recent years, the best example probably being James Mangold's Ford vs. Ferrari, but they have struggled at the box office, and with a passionate pre-built-in audience for something like Formula One, scrutiny isn't going to be too far behind. But again, should we have ever really doubted Kosinski after Top Gun Maverick? The movie that basically saved cinema? It starts out as a story of rivalry and resentment, but ultimately ends in redemption and respect. The grizzled, hardened veteran versus the arrogant, cocky up-and-comer that we've seen in times foregone on the silver screen, and that's why F1 works so well. It's a throwback to a time when movies like this ruled the roost, and it's just great to see. Starring Brad Pitt as well as Damson Idris, Kerry Condon, and Javier Bardem, F1 features roaring engines, ferocious driving sequences, stunning locations, and high stakes. The film takes advantage of all the real-life tracks, cars, and drivers it has access to, and pays homage to the sport and movie genre it is a clear love letter to. Right now, Kosinski is the king of feel-good box office. I don't know any other way of describing him. Number 7. Thunderbolts. Is the MCU back? Oh, there's a big Doctor Doom-shaped elephant in the room that'll answer that question next year, but for now at least, Jake Schreier's Thunderbolts, Asterix, has shown some welcome signs of life. With an asterisk. It's not amazing, but Thunderbolts is a huge breath of fresh air compared to its predecessors, and more importantly, the mature themes that the film explores and examines, such as mental health and trauma and imposter syndrome and self-hatred, are done so in a really compelling fashion. Several characters are all dealing with their respective issues and subsequent identity crises, and their self-perceived imperfections are celebrated as opposed to being condemned. Albeit made up of malefactors and misfits, there's something magnetic about the Thunderbolts as a team, as they're bound by their shared melancholy and misdeeds. And although the film packs a heavy punch, it's also genuinely hilarious in a way recent Marvel films just haven't been, as well as boasting some truly terrific action sequences and set pieces led by the always brilliant Florence Pugh and a revitalized Sebastian Stan. It's still not at the level of invention of something like Matt Reeves' The Batman, but as a rejoinder to the last 5 years of MCU malfunctions, it's a welcome change of pace. Number 6. Hellboy The Crooked Man. You'd have been hard-pressed to find someone who was actively looking forward to Hellboy The Crooked Man after its first promo images dropped online, let alone after the disaster that was the 2019 David Harbour-led reboot. But speaking as a big Hellboy and Mike Mignola fan, there were several reasons to be optimistic. The first was that Mignola and Christopher Golden were writing the script, and it would be pulling directly from the Crooked Man story, a great but typical Hellboy one-and-done tale that took place during the 1950s. Second, it would be aiming for something more horror adjacent than anything particularly superhero-y. A departure from the beloved but totally its own thing Guillermo del Toro movies, and a further sign of the project's commitment to authentically replicating the source material. But then there came the downsides, and well, there were a lot of them. The paltry budget, the fact it was being directed by Crank alumnus Brian Taylor, and the reveal that it would be going straight to streaming in the United States. And while it would be hugely disingenuous to claim that The Crooked Man equals Del Toro's films, or that its effects were anything to write home about, the end product is still hugely admirable, and about the closest we've ever gotten to a Hellboy film that accurately replicates the tone, vibe, and presentation of the Mignola-verse comics. As much as people were writing him off as Hellboy from Wish, Jack Kesey is great as the character. The Appalachian setting brings a unique vibe to the proceedings, and the movie overall is well performed. Given the proper budget, it could have been a home run, but at the very least, it was able to surprise for being so damn commendable when everyone was bracing for disaster. Number 5. The Accountant 2. The Accountant isn't actually on my list of the best pieces of dad movie cinema we got in the 2010s, but what it was still hugely watchable. A quirky, functioning thriller for Ben Affleck to fuel his Dunkin' Donuts addiction, and for us to react gleefully at the screen when some gun-toting bad guys get their comeuppance. But that was 2016, and so it was more than a little bit surprising when it was announced that The Accountant 2 was moving full steam ahead in 2024, almost 8 years following the first reports that a sequel was actually being developed. And somehow, that sequel ended up being even better. Directed by Gavin O'Connor again, The Accountant 2 is its predecessor's even more bonkers sibling, bolstered by a fun buddy dynamic between Affleck and Jon Bernthal, who Hollywood still hasn't figured out is A-list material for some reason, and some killer action sequences. Between Air from the other year and all the recent and upcoming movies on his slate, Affleck is gunning to be a dad movie king, and I for one endorse his candidacy. Number 4. K-pop Demon Hunters. First off, before I go any further in this entry, why the hell wasn't this in cinemas? A new movie from Sony Pictures Animation, the folks behind the hugely successful and acclaimed Spider-Verse films, about one of the most popular music genres currently going today, that appeals to a family and a young adult audience, and we're just not even trying with the box office? Totally weird and frustrating, and yeah, it's Netflix basically. But even then, the way K-pop Demon Hunters was announced and then quickly shunted onto the platform did raise some concerns that this could be a rare misfire for Sony's animation wing. But the film itself really is beautiful. A fluid, funny, and wholesome story all about self-forgiveness and expression that has a totally banger soundtrack everyone who's watched it won't be getting out of their heads anytime soon. Who's my soda pop? This movie. The movie's my soda pop. Also, I really love the Tiger and Corvid duo. They were wonderful. Number 3, The First Omen. There were so many red flags with this one that it's kind of ridiculous. Unnecessary prequel to a beloved and seminal horror classic? Check. Another failed attempt at rebooting said series after years being spent away from the big screen? Also check. A film that was probably going to undermine the ambiguity and mystery of what made the original so scary to begin with? Check, check, and check. And while The First Omen absolutely and painfully fails at that last hurdle, the fact that director Akasha Stevenson was still able to develop a subversive, guttural horror film within the confines of a studio horror prequel is nothing short of amazing. The First Omen is gnarly, creepy, and stuffed to the gills with great performances, with Nell Tiger Free even getting a riff on Isabella Gianni's breakdown in 1981's Possession in the third act. It's still not a patch on Richard Donner's original, and its big retcon is jarring to say the least, but taken on its own merits, The First Omen is a barnstormer that goes way harder than it had any right to. Number 2, Ballerina. By all accounts, John Wick spin-off Ballerina was setting itself up to be a huge failure the longer its production went on. A somewhat rare money spinner for Lionsgate in the last decade, it was inevitable that John Wick was going to be milked even after its story had been wrapped up by Chad Stahelski and Keanu Reeves. Lo and behold, Lionsgate developed a prequel spin-off called The Continental, which was bad, and then also Ballerina, an Ana de Armas vehicle intended to slot alongside neatly with the events of John Wick Chapters 3 and 4. Throw in a game director like Len Wiseman, who did decent work on 2007's Live Free or Die Hard, and you had a recipe for something okay, potentially. But then reports of its production began to pop up online. Ian McShane also let slip in an interview that Stahelski and Keanu and himself had been brought in to reshoot swaths of the picture to improve its prospects, particularly to punch up its action and bring it more in line with the improvisational ferocity of the main John Wick films. The end result was something thoroughly watchable and entertaining. An unnecessary addition to the world of Wick, absolutely, but one that could have been so much worse without those reshoots. And number 1, Land of Bad. Ironically, Land of Bad? Good. Who'd have thought it? Obviously, I'm not hinging the entire entry on the title being so blunt and dumb, but also I'm not saying that either. Also, military action movie being shunted straight to streaming and starring the less interesting Hemsworth? It's not exactly a good combination. And yet, for anyone who took the punt on Land of Bad, and come on, it's basically dad movie core, how could I not? They would have found a gritty, character-driven action film that was one part Black Hawk Down and one part Top Gun Maverick. William Eubank's film is one of contrasts and juxtaposing realities, focusing on both boots-on-the-ground warfare and the office-style mundanity of drone warfare and a lack of decompression that comes with that kind of assignment. Russell Crowe is brilliant in conveying that dynamic, striking up an Al Powell and John McClane-style camaraderie with Hemsworth's Sergeant Kinney, and the end result is something that, again, really deserved better than the limited release and streaming treatment. The title may be whack, but Land of Bad is Land of Rad. Yeah.